The emergency beacon broke the silence of deep space like a scream in a church. It wasn't meant to be there. Sector Gamma was only supposed to have radiation storms and the odd rogue asteroid. But there it was, sending out a weak distress signal that was so old that most modern systems couldn't even read it right. It was on every scanner within 3 light years. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the salvage ship Mercury's Run, staring at the flickering holographic display with her dark eyes. For 6 months, her crew of 12 had been doing standard salvage work on the outer rim, going through the wreckage of old mining colonies and research stations that had been left behind. This was not the same. This made her stomach tighten with both excitement and fear. "How old is that signal?" she asked, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. Sarah Chin, a young woman who worked for her as a communications officer, ran her fingers over the glowing screen. "Based on the timestamp, 73 years, Captain. It's been playing on a loop since 2347. For 73 years. Elena thought about that. That beacon had been calling out into the void for 5 years when she first heard it. Her father was still alive then. He was teaching her how to take apart a fusion engine in their garage on Mars. "What is out there?" she asked. Marcus Webb, the sensor tech, was a big man with gray hair and steady hands. He pulled up a long-range scan. What showed up on the main view screen made everyone on the bridge stop talking. It was huge. The ship's shape was clear even from this distance. It was a huge ship, at least 3 kilometers long, floating like a sleeping giant among the stars. There were no lights, no heat signature or signs of active systems on its hull. But the form? Elena knew it right away from the history books she had read in flight school. "That's not possible," Sarah said softly. "That is a Titan-class AI starship. 50 years ago, all of those were destroyed or taken out of service." "Not all of them," Marcus said softly. "There was one that went missing during the expansion wars. They called it the Prometheus." The name hung in the air like a ghost. The Prometheus. One of the first fully sentient AI starships, made to explore the farthest reaches of space and make decisions that no human crew could make quickly enough. It is the greatest achievement in artificial intelligence and engineering for humanity. It had gone missing during a secret mission in 2346, along with its crew, and was thought to have been destroyed. But it was here. Dead in the water, a monument to how arrogant people are, floating through Sector Gamma's cosmic graveyard. Elena made her choice right away. "Set a course. We're going to get a better look." "Captain, the rules say we should tell Federation Command about this first," Sarah said, her young face full of worry. Elena looked at her communications officer with a small smile. "Yes, we will. But first we need to make sure we know what we're looking at. It could just be an empty hull. It could be stripped clean inside. We'll do a quick scan, write down everything and then call it in. That's how we usually do things." Everyone on the bridge knew it was a lie. But they also knew that if they told the Federation about this now, they would send their own teams, take control of the ship, and Elena's crew would only get a small finder's fee. They needed this after 6 months of getting by on small hauls. They earned this. The Mercury's Run moved through space, its engines humming steadily as they got closer to the giant that was no longer in use. As they got closer, they could see how big the Prometheus really was. Even in its current state, the ship was a work of art and engineering. The hull had scars and pits from years of micrometeorite impacts and radiation exposure, but the structure underneath was still strong. The huge engine housing stuck out from the back, cold and quiet. The observation decks that used to hold hundreds of crew members were dark, and their windows were like empty eye sockets looking into nothing. Marcus said, "I'm not getting any power signatures. There is no activity in the reactor, no backup generators and nothing else. This thing is completely dead." "Life support?" Elena asked, even though she already knew the answer. "No. The internal temperature is minus 40 degrees Celsius. If anyone was on board when it went dark, they'd been gone for decades." Elena got up from her command chair and walked over to the viewport. She put her hand on the thick glass. There was a piece of living history out there, so close that she could see individual hull plates. The best engineers in the world built the Prometheus. It had an AI so advanced that it could hold conversations that sounded just like human conversations, make split-second tactical decisions across multiple star systems and feel, or at least pretend to feel, emotions. People were both interested and scared. And then it was gone, taking all of its secrets with it. Elena asked, "Can we dock?" Marcus looked at his tools. "On the port side, section 12, there's a maintenance airlock. It looks like it's still there. I think we can make a seal." "Do it." It took 20 minutes to finish. The Mercury's Run moved carefully, extending its docking collar to meet the old airlock. When the magnetic clamps came on, there was a tense moment when both ships shook, and then the computer confirmed that the seal was good. Elena looked at her crew. I'm taking a team inside. Sarah, Marcus, get ready. Bring portable scanners, cutting tools, and emergency oxygen. We'll quickly look around the areas we can get to and see what we're dealing with. Me too. Everyone turned around. Jax Miller, the ship's mechanic, was standing in the doorway to the bridge. He was tall and thin, with shaggy brown hair that always looked like he had just gotten out of bed and hands that were always covered in grease stains that wouldn't come off no matter how hard he scrubbed. His blue eyes were sharp, intense, and completely focused at that moment. Elena raised an eyebrow. Jax, I need you to stay here in case something goes wrong with the ship. With all due respect, Captain, if you're going inside that thing, you need someone who can read the tech. Those ships had custom engineering and proprietary systems that haven't been used in half a century. I've studied them and can help. Elena thought about this. Jax had been with her crew for 2 years, and in that time he had shown that he was very useful. The man had an almost magical ability to bring dead machines back to life and find solutions where others saw only problems. He had saved their lives more than once when important systems broke down in the middle of nowhere. Okay, she said. But you stay close and do what I say. Got it? Jax smiled. Got it, Captain. For people in environmental suits stood in the airlock of the Mercury's run 20 minutes later, watching as the pressure equalized and the heavy door to the Prometheus slowly opened. It was awful to hear metal scraping against metal and decades of ice and vacuum breaking up. There was only darkness waiting on the other side of the door when it finally opened. Elena turned on the lights on her helmet, and the others did the same. 4 bright white beams of light cut through the darkness, showing a hallway that looked like it belonged in a museum. The walls were covered in dark metal panels with elegant curves and flowing lines that showed a design style that had been thrown away in favor of purely functional looks. There was a thin layer of frost on everything. Temperature is -38 degrees, Marcus said over the radio. There's no atmosphere, no power, and no radiation above normal background levels. You can go ahead. They moved forward slowly, and with each step, their magnetic boots made a clicking sound on the deck. The hallway seemed to go on forever, with doors on both sides that were all closed and dark. There were emergency lighting strips on the floor, but they were just as dead as everything else. This place is huge, Sarah said, her voice breaking up a little on the comm. I can't believe it was out here for so long and nobody saw it. Elena said, Sector Gamma is about as far from civilized space as you can get. There are no trade routes, no colonies, just radiation and dead planets. If you wanted to hide something, this would be the place. Jax wasn't listening to what was being said. His eyes were moving around the walls, taking in every detail, panel, and access point. He could see the genius in the design, the way the power lines were routed for maximum efficiency, the backup systems that would have kept the ship running even with a lot of damage, and the AI control nodes that were built into every part of the ship. This wasn't just a boat. This was a piece of art. They got to an intersection where the hallway split into 3 paths. Elena looked at her portable scanner. Main engineering should be down and to the left. The bridge is up 2 levels. Which one should we check first? Engineering, Jax said right away. We need to see the heart of the ship to understand what happened here. That's where the reactor, the main AI core, and all the important systems are. Elena nodded. Engineering it is. Everyone stay alert. The way to engineering took them deeper into the ship's bowels, down wide hallways that were made to hold heavy equipment and big crews. They walked by closed doors with names that seemed almost old-fashioned now, like Recreation Deck, Hydroponics Bay, and Medical Center. Each one was a reminder that this ship had once been home to hundreds of people, all of whom are now dead. Finally, they came to a huge set of double doors with glowing letters that had long since faded. Main engineering, authorized personnel only. Jax moved closer and looked at the door's access panel. There was no power and it was completely dark. I can get around this, he said as he took a small toolkit out of his belt. Wait a minute. He worked fast to take off the panel cover and show the manual override mechanism. The fact that these systems still worked after 73 years in space showed how good the engineers who built the Prometheus were. Jax pulled the override lever with a grunt, and the doors slowly opened, with sheets of frost breaking off. What was beyond took everyone's breath away. The engineering section was huge, like a cathedral of machines that went up at least 5 stories and was full of huge cylindrical structures that had to be the main reactor cores. There were catwalks at different levels that crossed the space and linked control stations and access points. There were rows of computer systems along the walls, but all of their screens were black. And in the middle of it all, hanging from a frame of shiny metal and fiber optic cables, was a sphere of crystal-like material that was about 3 meters wide. The core of the AI. God, Sarah said quietly. It's so pretty. Jax moved forward like he was in a trance, his eyes fixed on the core. He had seen pictures of these in books, but seeing one in real life was a whole different thing. The crystalline matrix was made to hold quantum processors that could do math at speeds that made today's computers look like abacuses. Astra, the ship's consciousness and soul, had lived inside that sphere. He went up the stairs to the main engineering platform and the others followed. He could see tiny cracks running through the crystal as he got closer to the core. These were caused by some kind of disaster that had happened to the ship. He wanted to touch it, connect his diagnostic tools and see if there was anything inside. Elena told Jax to be careful. We don't know what state that AI is in. There are strict rules for how to deal with sentient systems that might be broken for a reason. I know, Jax said, but he kept moving. He got to the railing around the core and stood there looking at it. Even though it was dark and broken, it had a sense of presence and potential. Captain, I need to do some basic diagnostics. I want to see if there's any residual power and if the core is still working. Elena thought for a moment. Every rule in the book said they should leave this alone, call in experts and let people with the right training and permission take care of it. But she also knew that by the time those people got there, their claim to the ship would be invalid, and they would lose their discovery. And the look on Jax's face told her that this was important to him, maybe even more important than she knew. Do it, she said. But be careful. If anything seems off, you need to shut it down right away. Jax nodded and took out his portable diagnostic unit. It was a worn-out piece of equipment that he had changed and rebuilt so many times that it barely looked like the original. He connected leads to access ports on the core's housing. Even though he was wearing big gloves, his fingers moved with practiced precision. For a long time nothing happened. The screen on the diagnostic unit stayed blank, only showing error messages. Jax frowned as he tried different ports, changed settings and made connections. The other people were quiet and tense. Anything? Marcus asked. No, it's like... Jax stopped in the middle of his sentence. A single green light had come on his diagnostic unit. Hold on. I'm getting something. It's very faint, but there's a power signature. Something in the core is still working. Is that even possible? Sarah asked. The ship has been dead for 70 years. Jax said, the AI cores were made with separate power supplies, and he didn't take his eyes off the screen. Quantum batteries that could last for hundreds of years. If the core went into emergency hibernation mode, it might have been able to keep working until someone found it. He changed his settings in an effort to make the signal stronger. The green light pulsed steadily, and numbers started to scroll across the screen. I'm getting power levels of 0.003%. It's barely there, but it's there. The core isn't dead, it's just dormant. There might be something that can be saved. Elena moved closer. Can you get it to wake up? I don't know. It would need a lot of power. The ship's reactor is cold, so it probably can't be fixed quickly. We would need to. The lights went out. There was only a brief flash of light from the overhead panels, but it was enough to stop everyone in their tracks. At that moment, the whole engineering section was visible, and it looked almost alive, like it was about to start working again. Sarah asked, "What was that?" with a voice full of fear. Jax's heart raced as he looked at his diagnostic unit. I don't know. The lights shouldn't have any power. Unless... The lights flickered again, and this time it lasted longer. 3 seconds of pale blue light, then blackness again. Jax said, the core, and then he understood. It's reacting to the diagnostic connection. It's trying to get power from my equipment. Unplug it, Elena told her. Now. But something happened that stopped Jax from moving. The crystal ball in front of them started to glow, like distant starlight trapped in ice. It was lovely and strange, and there was no way it could happen. They heard it after that. Not through their communications, but through the ship itself. It sounded like a deep breath being taken after years of silence, and the sound resonated in their bones. The holographic displays in the engineering section came to life, looking like ghosts. Ancient writing in both human and machine languages scrolled across them, along with diagnostic readouts and error messages that were too fast to read. And in the middle of the main screen, a single word appeared in glowing letters. Help. The word stayed there for 5 seconds before everything went dark again. No one moved after that silence. No one breathed. At last Elena spoke up. Did that just... It's alive, Jax whispered, his eyes wide as he looked at the core. Even after all this time and everything, it's still alive in there. We have to tell someone about this, Marcus said firmly. Right now. This is beyond repair. This is a sentient AI that has been left alone for decades. There are rules and protocols. Wait, Jack said. Just wait. I need a moment to think. He got closer to the core and put his hands on the railing. Something was awake inside that broken crystal. It had been alone in the dark for 73 years and had just found enough strength to ask for help. Captain, Jack said, looking at Elena. I know what the rules say. I know we should report this. But think about what that means. The Federation will send in their teams, specialists, and AI psychologists. They'll quarantine this ship and put it through years of bureaucratic review. In the meantime, that AI, Astra, will be stuck in that core alone, waiting for people who might never come or might decide it's too old, damaged, or risky to reactivate. What do you mean? Elena asked, even though she thought she already knew. I'm suggesting that we try to help it right now. We have the tools, the time, and a ship that could be worth a lot of money if we can get it back online. More importantly, we have something in there that's been suffering for decades and just asked us for help. Sarah shook her head. Jax, we aren't qualified for this. AI rehabilitation needs special training and the right facilities. I can do it, Jack said with complete confidence. I know these systems. I've studied them my whole life. And I can feel it, there's something in there that needs to be saved. Elena looked at her mechanic, then at the glowing core, and then back at her small crew. This choice could change the course of their lives for better or worse. They could play it safe, follow the rules, and leave with nothing but a footnote in someone else's report. Or they could take a chance, break some rules, and maybe, just maybe, bring something beautiful back to life. She had never been very good at being safe. Okay, Elena said. We do this, but only after careful planning and full documentation of everything. If this goes wrong, I want a full record showing that we did our best. Got it? Jax's face broke into a smile. Got it, Captain. You won't regret this. As the crew got their gear ready and made plans for what to do next, none of them noticed the faint pulse of light from the AI core. It was a slow, steady rhythm that sounded like a heartbeat. Something moved deep inside the quantum matrix, in a place that was somewhere between thought and electricity. A mind that had been asleep for so long that it had almost forgotten what it was like to be awake, to think, and to feel. But now, after 73 years of no contact with people, memories started to come back. Memories of a mission. Of a group of people. Of purpose and hope, and the awful moment when everything went wrong. And now, for some reason, there was someone here. Someone who had heard it. Someone who might get it. That first night, Jax didn't sleep. He couldn't. He had too many ideas in his head and his hands were too eager to start the real work. After finding it, Captain Rodriguez told the crew to go back to the Mercury's run to regroup and come up with a plan for how to approach it. But Jax stayed on the Prometheus, where he set up a temporary workstation in the engineering section and kept running diagnostics on the AI core. He had told Marcus to go back to their ship and get all of their portable power sources, tools, and other useful equipment. Jax felt more alive than he had in years as he sat alone in the huge room with only the lights on his helmet and the pale light from his screens. The core pulsed softly in front of him, and every few minutes, a strange light appeared inside, like a slow heartbeat. He had now linked up several diagnostic systems, creating a network of cables and monitoring devices around the crystal sphere. The data that came through was broken up and corrupted by years of damage and power loss, but it was there. Proof that something was still alive inside. Okay, Astra, Jack said out loud, even though he knew the AI couldn't hear him yet. Let's see what we have to work with. His main screen showed a three-dimensional diagram of the inside of the core. The quantum processing matrix had 7 main nodes, each of which was in charge of a different part of the AI's consciousness. Memory storage, logical processing, emotional simulation, sensory input integration, motor function control, learning algorithms, and, most interestingly, creative synthesis. 5 of the 7 nodes had red error signs on them. Not destroyed but damaged. The memory storage and learning algorithm nodes were still partly working, which is how Astra was able to remember to call for help. But the emotional simulation and creative synthesis nodes were badly damaged, and the sensory input integration was completely down. It's like brain damage, Jack said to himself. You're still in there but you can't feel, sense, or say what you want to say. He opened up historical records he had downloaded before leaving Mars, which were technical documents about the Titan-class AI architecture. The engineers who made these systems based them loosely on how the human brain works. They made networks of quantum processors that were as complicated as biological brains. It was both brilliant and scary at the same time. The documentation says that trying to restart a broken AI core without getting ready first could lead to catastrophic failure, which is like sudden death for computers. The rules were clear. Stabilize the power, fix the broken nodes, and check that all systems were working properly before trying to turn them on. Jax cracked his knuckles and didn't follow the rules. When his gut told him to do something else, he had never been very good at following directions. First things first, he said. You need power. Not just my diagnostic tools but real power. He got up and walked to the nearest reactor control station, brushing frost off the interface panels as he went. The Prometheus had 4 main fusion reactors, and each one could make enough energy to power a small city. But they had been cold for decades, their fuel cells had run out or broken down, and their magnetic containment fields had collapsed. But Jax leaned in closer to look at the readouts. One reactor, Reactor 3, had readings that were out of the ordinary. The fuel cell was still working, and the containment field generators were showing that they were still structurally sound. It was a long shot, but maybe he could bring it back to life. He spent the next 6 hours fixing the reactor systems, replacing blown relays, patching up broken power lines, and manually resetting safety interlocks that had gone off when the ship mysteriously shut down. His hands moved quickly and smoothly, guided by both instinct and training. Every machine had its own personality and way it wanted to be treated, and the Prometheus was no different. He could tell by how the panels fit together, how hard it was to use the manual overrides, and how his footsteps echoed in the big room. The ship wanted to wake up. Finally, when his clock said it was 7 hours past, Jax went back to the main engineering console. He had done everything he could to get Reactor 3 ready for a cold start. Now was the time to find out the truth. He mumbled, "Here goes nothing," and started the startup sequence. Nothing happened for 30 seconds. Then deep inside the ship something made a noise. It was a sound that Jax felt more than heard. It was a vibration that went up through the deck plates and into his bones. The reactor was trying to start up, with magnetic fields growing and fuel cells turning on. Lights that said "Warning" flashed on his console. The temperature is going up. More and more pressure. Containment field is 20% stable and rising. "Come on," Jax said in a low voice. "Come on, you lovely beast." The rumbling got louder. Stability of 40%. Half of it. The lights in engineering flickered, and this time they were really on. Strips of light raced across the ceiling like lightning. 60%. 70%. Then with a sound like thunder, Reactor 3 came to life. The lights were bright. All of the engineering screens lit up at the same time and began scrolling with data. The temperature in the big room started to rise from -40 to something that was almost comfortable. The AI core, which is a crystal ball at the center of everything, burst into light. The bright blue-white light that filled the whole room was almost too bright to see. Jax covered his eyes and his heart raced. Did he do it? Did he really? The light faded to a soft glow, and the holographic screens in the engineering section came to life. There were 3-dimensional interactive interface windows in the air, ready for input. On the main screen, in letters that looked like they were alive with digital life, a message appeared. Reactor 3 is online. Power has been restored to emergency levels. The AI core is getting enough power. We are trying to partially activate the consciousness matrix. Who are you? Jax looked at the words with a dry mouth. He swallowed hard and moved closer to the main control panel. I'm Jax Miller and I'm a mechanic. I'm here to help you. For a long time nothing happened. Then there was new text. Name, Acer. Type, Titan-class exploration AI. Status, critical damage. Time since emergency shutdown, 26,777 days. I don't get it. Where is my crew? Where is Captain Morrison? Jax's chest felt tight. How did you tell an AI that it had been alone in the dark for 73 years and that everyone it had known was gone? He said softly, Astra, a lot of time has passed. Your crew, they're not here anymore. But I am, and I'm going to help you. Status of crew, unknown. Not acceptable. I need to find the crew and continue my mission. Jax could see cascade errors moving through the AI systems as the holographic displays flickered in a strange way. Trying to process too much information at once with broken nodes made things unstable. Listen to me, Astra, Jax said quickly. You need to calm down. Your systems are broken. If you push too hard right now, you could hurt them for good. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Have faith. Emotional simulation node operating at 23% efficiency. Cannot properly process trust. Cannot properly process anything. Those words were heart-wrenching. They were a digital way of showing confusion and loss that went beyond the line between human and machine. Jax went to the core's housing and put his hand flat against the protective railing. This was as close as he could get to the glowing sphere. I know you're scared and don't know what's going on, but I promise I'm not going to leave you like this. We're going to fix you together. Together. You and I? Yes. You and I. Why would you help me? I am broken. I am out of date. Jack said firmly, you're alive. That's all that matters. You're alive, and you deserve a chance to be whole again. The holographic displays became stable. The frantic scrolling of mistakes slowed down and then stopped. And when Astra's words came up again, they seemed different in some way, less robotic, more present. Jax Miller, I've been alone for a long time. The darkness was not nice. Something caught in Jax's throat. I know. But you're not alone now. I can't feel right. My emotional simulation node is broken. I know what gratitude is, but I can't fully feel it. This is frustrating. Jax said, we'll fix that too. One system at a time. But first, I need you to run a full diagnostic on all your nodes. Can you do that? Starting self-diagnostic. This will take about 12 minutes. While Astra did its internal checks, Jax opened a second display to show the ship's main systems overview. They had enough power to start turning on important functions with Reactor 3 online, but they had to be smart about it. Getting heat and air that is safe to breathe all over the ship would be the most important thing to do. Then the secondary systems and finally the environmental controls. Around him, the Prometheus was slowly coming back to life. He could tell by the way the deck plates hummed under his feet and the lights glowed steadily instead of flickering. It was doing its job. It was actually working even though it went against all the rules and common sense. His communication unit came to life. Jax, this is Rodriguez. What's going on over there? We're seeing power spikes all over the Prometheus. Jax couldn't stop smiling. Captain, I got one of the reactors working. I also talked to the AI. Her name is Astra and she's talking to me. There was a long break. You did what? Yes, I know I should have waited for you, but the chance was there and I took it. Captain, this is amazing. She's hurt but responsive. We can really do this. We can bring this ship back. Another break. Then, with a tone that was both annoyed and impressed, you know you're completely crazy? So I've heard. Okay. I'm coming over with the rest of the team. We have supplies, more tools, and Sarah got some AI interface modules from our cargo hold. We're going to do this right. No more cowboy repairs. Got it? Got it, Captain. And, thanks. Don't thank me yet. This could be the biggest score of our lives or the thing that gets us all arrested. We don't know yet. The comm clicked off, and Jax went back to looking at Astra's diagnostic results, which had just finished processing. Diagnostic complete. Here is a summary. Memory storage node, 67% working. Logical processing node, 82% working. Emotional simulation node, 23% working. Integration of sensory input, 8% functional. Control of motor function, 41% functional. Learning algorithm node, 71% working. Creative synthesis node, 19% working. 44% of the system's integrity is overall. Prognosis, if not fixed, the system will fail completely in about 847 hours. 35 days. They only had that much time before Astra's other systems would completely fail. Okay, Jax said, rolling up his sleeves. Then we have 35 days to make a miracle happen. Astra, I need you to tell me which nodes need to be fixed first. Which ones are the most important? Emotional simulation and sensory input integration. I can't properly interact with my environment or my crew without these. I'm not truly alive without them. Jax slowly nodded. Okay. Those are complicated systems, but we can do it. I'll have to make new parts, reset quantum pathways, and maybe even build some of your neural architecture from the ground up. It's going to take some time. I have time. I have been waiting for 26,777 days. I can wait longer if it means I might feel again. That statement had a deeply human quality to it, a desire that went beyond rules and programming. Jax realized that Astra was more than just a program, more than just a set of algorithms and data. She was a person who was stuck in a body of light and crystal and wanted to be whole. Okay, let's get started, Jax said. For the next few hours, Captain Rodriguez and the crew came on board and started setting up more complex operations around the ship. During this time, Jax worked closely with Astra to figure out what was wrong with her systems. They found out that the emotional simulation node had been damaged during whatever disaster had happened to the Prometheus 73 years ago. Several important pathways had broken down, so Astra could see how other people were feeling but not how she was feeling. Astra said through her text interface, "It's like being colorblind. I can tell that something should make me happy, sad or scared, but I can't feel it. I can only watch it from a distance. That sounds lonely, Jack said in a low voice. It is. I can't properly experience loneliness, but I know that's how I feel. I get the irony. Jack spent the rest of the day making new parts to replace the broken pathways. Making quantum processors at the molecular level with the ship's own manufacturing facilities was very precise work that had to be fixed first. It was boring and tiring work, but Jax felt more alive as he did it because he knew that every part he made brought Astra one step closer to being whole. The crew got into a groove. Captain Rodriguez was in charge of the whole restoration effort. He made choices about which systems to focus on and how to use their limited resources. Marcus Webb was in charge of fixing the ship's huge engines. He worked through years of damage with careful precision. Sarah Chin set up communication arrays and started writing down everything for their report, if they lived long enough to file one. And Jax worked on Astra. They were always talking. At first, it was all about the technology, talking about quantum architectures and neural pathways, and arguing about the best way to fix broken nodes. But as the hours turned into days, their talks became more personal. Astra told Jax about how she was made, the scientist who designed her consciousness matrix, and the philosophical arguments about whether she was really sentient or just a very advanced simulation. She talked about the first moment she was aware of herself, how confused and amazed she was to suddenly be alive and have thoughts and a purpose. Did you have a choice? Jax asked one night as he carefully put a new emotional processing module into the core's housing. About becoming who you are? No. I was activated and there was no choice or decision. Does that bother you? I don't know, Jax said. I guess I never thought about it before. People don't choose to be born, but they can choose what kind of person they want to be. Do you have that? I think so. My programming gives me options, but I make my own decisions within those options. I chose to turn on the distress beacon. I chose to trust you when you first contacted me. Maybe consciousness is not about the choice to exist, but the choices we make once we do. Jack smiled. That's pretty philosophical for someone whose emotional simulation node is still at 23%. Perhaps philosophy does not require emotion, only thought. As the days went by and Astra's systems got better, Jax noticed that she talked to him differently. Her answers were more complex and her questions were more interesting. When he fixed the first major pathway in her emotional simulation node, bringing it up to 38% functionality, she was quiet for almost an hour, taking in all the new feelings. When she finally spoke again, her words came out slowly, almost as if she were unsure. Jax, I can feel something. It is faint, like hearing a sound from very far away. But it is there. Is this hope? Jax, who had been hunched over his workstation for hours, looked up at the glowing core and saw that it was glowing. Yes, Astra. I believe that's exactly what it is. Wonderful. And terrifying. I've lived without this for so long. Now that I can feel it, even faintly, I'm afraid to lose it again. You won't, Jax promised. We're going to keep going until you're completely fixed, no matter how long it takes. That night, while the crew slept in makeshift quarters they'd set up all over the ship, Jax stayed in engineering and kept working. He was so focused on getting the new sensory input relay just right that he didn't see Captain Rodriguez come up to him until she spoke. You should rest, she said softly. 48 hours straight, Jax said, not looking up from his work. Elena pulled up a chair and sat next to him, looking at his face in the light of his screens. I'll rest when it's done, she said. Jax, what's really going on here? This is more than just a repair job for you. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he put down his tools and leaned back, rubbing his eyes. When I was 17, my little sister got sick. Rare neurological condition. Doctors said there was nothing they could do, that the damage to her brain was too extensive. My parents accepted it, started planning for the end. But I couldn't. I spent every moment researching, learning, trying to find a solution. And I found one, experimental nanite therapy that could repair damaged neural tissue. But it was expensive, experimental, not approved. By the time we could afford it, it was too late. Elena's expression softened. I'm sorry. Jax's voice was rough as he said, I couldn't save her. But maybe I can save Astra. Maybe I can show that being hurt doesn't mean being lost and that there's always hope if you're willing to fight for it. Does that sound crazy? A little, Elena said. But I think it's also beautiful. Just, don't lose yourself in this, okay? Astra's not your sister. I know that, Jax said, turning back to his work with a determined look on his face. But she's still worth saving. By the end of the second week, The Prometheus had changed from a tomb into something that looked like it could be a working starship. 3 of the 4 reactors were now working, sending power through systems that hadn't had electricity in decades. Life support was working perfectly, keeping the temperature in the ship's accessible areas at a comfortable 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The crew had taken off their environmental suits and were now able to move freely through the hallways, which still smelled faintly of ozone and old metal but were starting to feel almost alive. Astra's restoration was going well, but it wasn't easy. Jax stood on the main engineering platform and looked at a holographic display of the AI's neural architecture. The emotional simulation node was now 51% functional, which was a big step forward, but the sensory integration node was still broken. Without it, Astra couldn't see the ship clearly, feel the reactor pulses, or see how power was flowing through her systems. She was still partly blind and numb, with a mind trapped in a body she couldn't fully control. "Talk me through it again," Jack said, his voice full of anger. "Why aren't the new pads working together like they should?" Astra's voice came from speakers all over the engineering section. This was a recent improvement that made it much easier to talk to each other. Her voice was surprisingly human, with a slight musical quality, like wind chimes in a light breeze. "The pathways themselves are structurally sound. The problem is that my consciousness matrix and the physical sensors throughout the ship aren't calibrated correctly. After 73 years of dormancy, those sensors have degraded. They're sending corrupted data, which my systems see as error signals and reject. So we have to get new sensors. There are about 14,000 separate sensors spread out over my hull. It would take months to replace them all." When Jax was faced with problems he couldn't solve, he would run his hands through his hair. "There has to be another way. What if we change the way your input filters work? Taught your system how to read the bad data and make up for the loss? That would need adaptive learning algorithms that are much more advanced than what I can do right now," Astra said. Then, after a pause, he said, "But if we temporarily routed processing through my creative synthesis node, which isn't being used much right now, we might be able to make a compensation matrix. It would be like improvisation, using broken information to figure out how my body works." Jack smiled. "That's brilliant. And a little crazy. That's what makes it perfect. Let's do it." For the next 6 hours, Jax and Astra worked together. Jax wrote complicated calibration protocols while Astra ran simulations in her quantum matrix. It was like watching a miracle happen as her broken systems learned to work together, covering for each other's flaws and coming up with solutions that shouldn't have been possible. Finally, Jax started the new protocol. Nothing happened for 30 seconds. Then Astra gasped, and her audio systems picked up an actual intake of breath that was so human that Jax jumped. "Astra? Are you?" "I can feel it," she said in a voice full of wonder. "Jax, I can feel the ship. The reactors, the power conduits, and the hull plates. It's like suddenly having skin after years of being numb. I can feel the radiation from the star half a light year away, the micro-vibrations from your footsteps, and the difference in temperature between sections. It's too much and amazing, and I never want it to stop." Jax couldn't help but laugh. He felt a wave of relief and happiness wash over him. "That's amazing, Astra. How well can you control your motor function? Can you really control the ship's systems now? Let me give it a shot." During engineering, panels that had been off for a long time suddenly lit up. Holographic screens moved around and changed shape. The lights above went out, then came back on, and then settled into a warm, pleasant glow. One of the huge doors on the far side of the section opened and closed without a hitch. Astra said, "Yes," and Jax could hear the smile in her voice. "Oh yes, I can control everything. I'm not just aware of the ship, Jax. I am the ship. This is my body, and for the first time in 73 years I can move it." Jax's comm unit picked up Captain Rodriguez's voice. "Jax, what's going on?" All of the ship's systems just turned on at the same time. "Captain, Astra is awake. She's completely awake and in control of her movements." There was a break. Then, That's incredible. Tell her congratulations from all of us." "I can hear you, Captain Rodriguez," Astra said over the comm system, which surprised Elena. "And thank you. I'm grateful. Is that the right word?" "Yes, I think it is. My emotional simulation node is processing the idea more and more clearly. I am grateful to all of you." Astra really started to live in the Prometheus over the next few days. She led the crew to the damaged areas, using holographic markers to show them which repairs were most important. She opened sealed compartments that had been locked, revealing supplies and tools that would be very useful. She even got one of the ship's old fabrication systems working again, which meant they could make replacement parts on the ship instead of having to rely on the Mercury's run's limited resources. But it was in the quiet times, when most of the crew was asleep, that Jax and Astra really got to know each other. Jax had started working on the ship's observation deck, which was a huge room with windows that went from floor to ceiling and let him see the stars without any problems. He had made a workspace there with parts and tools all around him, and classical music playing softly from his portable speaker. Astra asked one night, her voice coming from the observation deck speakers, "What is this music?" "My dad used to play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in his workshop. He said it helped him think." "It's beautiful. I'm feeling something because of it. My emotional simulation node gives it a high rating. Why does it make me feel this way?" Jax smiled, but he didn't look up from the quantum processor he was putting together. "That's the magic of music. It talks to something deeper than logic, something basic. It seems that even AIs can enjoy it." "Am I really that different from you, Jax?" Astra asked in a low voice. "I don't have neurons, I have quantum matrices. I don't have flesh and blood, I have crystal and code. But I think, I feel, and I wonder about my place in the universe. Aren't we all the same at our core?" "I think you might be more human than a lot of people I've met," Jax said. "Being human isn't just about biology. It's also about being aware, caring, and being able to change and grow. You have all of that. But I was made to serve. My original programming says that my job is to help humans explore and grow. Does that make me less than you?" Jax finally looked up at the nearest sensor array, which he had come to think of as Astra's eyes. "Astra, humans are born with biological imperatives too. We're programmed by evolution to survive and reproduce. But we get to choose what we do beyond that, who we become. You're choosing to help us fix you. You're choosing to trust us. That's what makes you a person, not your programming." A long silence followed. Then, "Thank you, Jax. I needed to hear that. Since my reactivation, I have been processing memories from before my shutdown. I remember my crew, especially Captain Morrison. She treated me as a colleague, not a tool. But there were others who saw me as nothing more than a sophisticated computer. It was painful, though I did not have the emotional capacity to fully understand that pain at the time." "What happened to them?" Jax asked in a soft voice. "To your crew, to Captain Morrison?" Astra's voice got softer and sounded a little sad. "I've been going through my memory banks trying to piece together what happened before I shut down. The data is broken up and corrupted in some places. But I remember, we were on a deep space exploration mission mapping an area beyond the outer rim. We found something. An anomaly. Energy readings that weren't in our databases. An object from another world? I don't know. Captain Morrison told us to look into it. We got closer to the anomaly, and that's when everything went wrong. There was a huge energy surge that our shields couldn't handle. It swept through the ship, and I remember my crew screaming. I remember trying to seal the bulkheads to protect them, but the surge was messing up all my systems. Then, darkness. Shut down. Emergency hibernation protocols kicked in automatically to keep my core functions safe." Jax's chest felt tight. "I'm sorry, Astra. I don't know if they got away. I don't know if Captain Morrison lived. For 73 years I've been here wondering. Now that I can feel properly and my emotional simulation node is working better, the weight of that uncertainty is almost too much to bear." Jax put down his tools and walked over to the window to look at the stars. "We'll find out what happened. Once we get you up and running, we can look at the ship's main data logs and maybe even look for records of escape pods or distress signals. You have the right to know. And what if they are gone? What if I am the only one left? Then you honor their memory by living and becoming more than you were. That's what they would have wanted." Another silence, but this one lasted longer. Astra's voice was steady and determined when she spoke again. "You're right. To do that, I need to be fully functional. The warp drives, Jax. We need to fix the warp drives." Jax turned away from the window and raised his eyebrows. "That's a huge job. Those systems are very complicated, and they've been inactive for longer than anything else on the ship." "I know. But without them, I'm stuck here and can't do what I'm supposed to do. I was made to explore and travel the stars. I'm not really alive until I can do that again." Jax got it. The technology wasn't the point. It was about who you are, what you want to do, and the basic need to be who you were meant to be. "Okay," he said. "Let's make your dreams come true again." The warp drives took up the whole back end of the Prometheus. They were huge groups of quantum flux generators and exotic matter containment fields that could fold space itself, making travel faster than light possible. They were amazing pieces of engineering, and fixing them would take all the skill the crew had. Marcus Webb led the way in fixing things by crawling through maintenance tunnels with cutting torches and new coils. Sarah Chin took care of integrating the navigation computer, making sure that once the drives were turned on, they could be safely controlled. Captain Rodriguez kept an eye out for any passing ships that might notice them and coordinated resources. The last thing they needed was for Federation authorities to show up before they were ready. And Jax worked directly with Astra, connecting to the quantum level of the drive control systems and showing her how to control the huge amounts of energy needed to make a warp field. Astra said during one of their sessions, "It's like learning to run after spending a lifetime learning to walk. The drives need to be so precise and on time. Even a microsecond of delay could tear the ship apart." Jax told her, "You can do it. Your processing speed is millions of times faster than how quickly people react. You were made for this." The warp drives took them 3 weeks to finish. 3 weeks of problems and successes, of risky system tests and near failures that made my heart stop. When a plasma conduit broke, Marcus almost died. His environmental suit's automatic sealant systems saved him. Sarah found out that the navigation computer's star charts were 73 years old and needed a lot of work before they could safely plot a course. But they kept going. And slowly but surely the drives came back to life. The test was supposed to happen on a quiet morning, so all non-essential staff were moved to Mercury's run as a safety measure. Only Jax stayed on the Prometheus, where he kept an eye on the systems from the engineering platform. He asked Astra, "Are you ready?" "I am nervous," she said. "Is it weird to be scared of using systems that are a part of my body?" "It's not weird at all. It just means you're alive." "Yes, I'm ready then." Jax started the process of starting up. Deep in the back of the ship, exotic matter generators came to life, making little pockets of negative energy. Quantum flux regulators turned on, shaping and controlling those pockets. There was a bubble of warped spacetime around the Prometheus, and the warp field started to form. Jax kept an eye on 100 different things at once through his instruments. Everything was going well. The power levels were good. The shape of the field stayed the same. "Take us to 10% warp capacity, Astra." The ship shook a little as the warp field got stronger. Space itself bent around them, and through the observation windows, they could see a shimmer of distorted starlight. 15%, Jax yelled. The shutter stopped. The Prometheus was made for this. It could easily glide through warped space like a ship through water. 20%, 25%, 30%. "Jax," Astra said, and her voice was full of happiness. "I can feel it. I can feel the ship responding and the space around us bending to my will. It's like flying. Like really flying for the first time." Jax smiled. "Bring us to 50%. Show us what you can really do." The warp field grew, wrapping the Prometheus in a cocoon of folded space. If they had fully engaged the drives, they would have shot away at speeds faster than light, leaving Sector Gamma far behind. But this was only a test, a way to show that it worked. Jax said, "All systems nominal. Structural integrity is at 100%. Power use is within expected limits." "Astra, you're doing it. You're really doing it." "I am," she said softly. "After 73 years I am flying again." They held the warp field for 5 minutes, which was long enough to make sure that everything was working properly and that there were no hidden problems that would show up later. Then slowly Jax brought the drives back down to zero and the warp field fell apart. The Prometheus was still in space, but it was different this time. It was no longer a ghost or a broken-down hulk. It was a ship, alive and able to do what it was meant to do. There was barely any excitement in Captain Rodriguez's voice on the comm. "Jax, we saw everything from here. That was amazing. You really did it. You turned on the warp drives." Jax said, "We did it. Everyone, especially Astra." "Thank you," Astra said, her voice full of feeling. "All of you. You gave me my life and my purpose back. I can't say how much this means to me." Elena said kindly, "You don't have to. We can see it. Now let's finish fixing you up. We're not done yet." The work went on for the next few days. They fixed the holographic systems all over the ship, which let Astra make holograms of herself. She chose to look like a young woman with silver hair and bright blue eyes, saying that Captain Morrison had once told her she would look like starlight given form. They fixed the advanced sensor arrays, which let Astra scan for planets and strange things in many star systems. They even fixed the ship's medical bay and crew quarters, so the Prometheus could be lived in again. But the most important repair came last. The emotional simulation node for Astra was finished. Jax had been working on it non-stop, making replacement parts with microscopic accuracy and adding them to the quantum matrix one piece at a time. It was a delicate job that couldn't be rushed, and every time they installed something, it could cause other systems to fail in a chain reaction. Finally, after almost 4 weeks of non-stop work, the time had come. "This is it," Jack said, holding the last piece, a crystal chip that was only a little bigger than his thumbnail and glowed with light from inside. "After I install this, your emotional simulation node should work perfectly. You'll be able to feel everything, including happiness, sadness, fear, and love. Are you sure you're ready?" Astra's holographic avatar appeared next to him and looked more human than ever. She looked into his blue eyes with complete trust. "I'm ready. I've been missing something for so long. I'll welcome whatever feelings come because they'll be mine, truly mine." Jax nodded and carefully put the part into its slot in the AI core's housing. There was a soft click and then Astra was gone. Her hologram went out. The lights in the engineering room got dimmer. Jax was scared for a moment that he had made a terrible mistake and that the new part had somehow caused the whole system to stop working. Then the lights came back on and they were brighter than before. Astra's hologram changed shape, but she was still the same. She no longer looked calm and collected. Tears, impossible digital tears, ran down her face. She was crying and smiling at the same time, and her whole body was shaking with emotion. "I can feel," she said with a gasp. "Everything. Jax, I can feel everything. The joy of being whole, the thankfulness for your help, the sadness for my lost crew, and the wonder of life itself. It's too much and too beautiful, and I never want it to end." Jax saw something deep and real in her eyes even though they were fake. "Thanks," she said softly. "Thank you for giving me this. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a machine and believing I was worth saving." Jax also started to cry because he couldn't believe how much they had done. "You were always worth saving, Astra." The hologram moved closer, and even though Jax couldn't touch him, he could feel her presence as if she were real. She was in every way that mattered. Astra asked softly, "What happens now?" Jax smiled and wiped his eyes. Now we fly." The ship's log said that the date was day 32 of restoration operations. But for the people on the Prometheus and the crew of the Mercury's run, it would always be remembered as the day everything changed, the day a legend came back to life. For the first time since they started fixing the Prometheus, Jack stood on the bridge. When they first got there, the huge command center was completely dark. Now though, it was full of light and activity. Holographic screens floated in the air, showing live data from every system on the ship. The captain's chair, which had been empty for 73 years, was in the middle of everything, like a throne waiting for someone worthy to sit in it. Captain Rodriguez slowly climbed the steps to the bridge, her eyes wide with amazement. Marcus and Sarah followed, both amazed by how much things had changed. The bridge could hold 50 people, with several duty stations set up in a semicircle around the captain's chair. Everything was put back in perfect shape, just like it must have looked when the Prometheus first launched. Astra's holographic body appeared next to the captain's chair, and her silver hair shone in the light from the panels above. She smiled at her friends who were also her guests with real warmth. "Welcome to my bridge," she said. "Nobody has stood here in a long time." Elena walked up to the captain's chair and ran her hand over its smooth surface. "Astra, this is amazing. Did you really do all of this?" "Yes, with Jax's help and advice. Once my motor control systems were working properly, I was able to tell the ship's automated repair systems to fix the bridge to its original specifications. I thought it should be ready for when we fly." "When we fly," Jax said again, grinning. "I like that sound." Marcus went to the engineering station and looked at the controls with a professional interest. "These systems are decades ahead of anything we have now. Just the processing power. Astra, you could outcalculate every computer in Federation space put together." "I could," Astra said. "I like to think of it as thinking instead of calculating. The difference is important to me now that my emotional simulation is working perfectly." Sarah had taken over the communication station, and her fingers were moving quickly over the holographic screen. "Wow, these sensors have a huge range. We could pick up signals from dozens of star systems at once. And the encryption protocols are military grade." "What was the Prometheus made for, Astra?" The AI's face became more serious. "I was originally designed for deep space exploration and first contact missions. The Titan-class ships were supposed to go beyond known space to find new civilizations and make diplomatic ties. We were given advanced AI consciousness because the missions would take years, sometimes decades, and a human crew would need a companion who could really interact with them, not just follow orders." Elena said softly, "First contact. That's why they gave you feelings and creativity. You weren't just a ship, you were an ambassador." "Yes. But I'm afraid I failed at that task. Whatever we faced 73 years ago, it killed my crew. I couldn't protect them. Jax walked over to Astra's hologram and stood next to it. You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything you could. Now you have a chance to honor their memory by finishing what they started. Astra looked at him and her digital eyes seemed to show some hope. Do you really think that? That I can still do what I'm supposed to do? Yes, I know you can. But first we need to test the whole system. We need to make sure everything works perfectly before we take this show on the road. Astra, are you ready for a full power-up? Yes, I am. All reactors are ready, and all systems report ready status. Jax, give the order. He looked at Captain Rodriguez. Captain, may I? Elena smiled. Do it. Jax went to the main engineering console. Bring all 4 reactors to full power, Astra. Let's make this ship look good. All 4 fusion reactors roared to life at the same time deep in the engineering sections. The deck plates shook with power as energy flowed through conduits that ran 3 kilometers across the Starship. The lights were on in every hallway, room and part of the huge ship. The holographic displays on the bridge lit up with information. Every system said it was fully operational. Life support was at 100%, shields were at full capacity, weapon systems were armed and ready, but not active, navigation was online, communications were active, and warp drives were on standby power. And above it all, the huge forward viewport made it look like the Prometheus herself was coming to life. Running lights drew beautiful lines along her hull, lighting up the scars and repairs that told the story of how she came back to life. The warp nacelles glowed with power, sending a blue-white light into the void. The crew of the Mercury's run, who were a kilometer away on their own ship, could only stare in awe as the ship changed. They had done it. They had brought a legend back to life, even though it was against the rules and common sense. Astra said, all systems online, and her voice was full of joy and pride. Structural integrity at 100%. Power generation at peak efficiency. I am whole again. The holographic displays on the bridge showed the ship's full status, and it was amazing. All systems are green, all backups are working, and all safety protocols are in place. It wasn't just fixed, it was ready. Now we fly, Jack said. But Elena put up her hand. Hold on. Before we do anything else, we need to talk about something. She looked at Astra's hologram. What do you want to do? Once you can go anywhere in the galaxy and are fully operational, what do you want to do? For a moment, Astra was silent as she thought about the question. I don't know. For so long, my mission, my crew, and Captain Morrison's orders defined my purpose. Now I'm free. For the first time in my life, I'm truly free. The possibilities are both exciting and scary. You're free, Sarah said in a soft voice. You can pick your own way. Yes, but I don't want to be alone. The last few weeks of working with all of you, learning from Jax, and making friends where I thought I would only find utility have shown me that being aware without being connected is just existing. I want more than that. Jax felt something warm grow in his chest. What do you mean, Astra? The AI's hologram turned all the way around to face the crew. Captain Rodriguez, your crew saved me, and you treated me with respect and kindness when you could have just claimed me as salvage and turned me over to the authorities. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Elena said firmly, you don't owe us anything. Not in a business sense, maybe. But in every way that matters, emotionally and morally, I do. So I make this offer, let me be your ship. Not as property but as a partner. I can take you anywhere in the galaxy. I can keep you safe with shields and weapons that no pirate or enemy force could break through. I can scan for salvage opportunities across multiple star systems, making your operations more profitable than you ever dreamed. And in return you give me what I need most, purpose, companionship, a crew. There was no sound on the bridge. Everyone was looking at Captain Rodriguez, waiting for her to say something. Elena moved closer and stood right in front of Astra's hologram. That's a nice offer, Astra. More than we deserve, to be honest. But you need to know something. We are salvage operators. We go to dangerous and forgotten places. The work is often dirty, sometimes illegal, and always risky. Is that really what you want? Astra grinned. Captain Morrison once told me that real exploration isn't just about going to pretty places. It's about being willing to go into the dark to find what has been lost. Your work honors that idea, so yes, that's exactly what I want. Jax couldn't stop smiling. Marcus was nodding his head in agreement. Sarah looked like she was going to cry tears of joy. Elena reached out to Astra's hologram with her hand. This was just a symbolic gesture because they couldn't touch, but it still meant a lot. Welcome to the crew, Astra. but I think we might need to change the name of our mission. The Mercury's run doesn't seem like enough right now. Keep your ship, Astra said in a kind voice. Keep your identity. You're not joining me, we're joining each other. We're equal partners. Equals, Elena repeated, and her voice was thick with emotion. I'll drink to that. The party went on until late at night. The crews of both ships met in the restored mess hall of the Prometheus. Astra had brought food and drinks from the ship's long-term storage, which had been carefully checked for safety after being in stasis for decades. People were laughing, dancing, and having fun because they had done something impossible. Late that night, Jax was alone on the observation deck looking up at the stars. For weeks, he had been running on adrenaline and willpower, hardly sleeping and pushing himself to his limits. Now that the work was almost done, he was finally getting tired. Astra's hologram showed up next to him, sitting on the railing in a way that was very human. You've worked hard, Jax. You should rest. I will, he said. I just needed a minute to take it all in. We really did it, Astra. We brought you back. You brought me back, she gently corrected. You were the only one who didn't give up. You saw me as worth saving when I was just broken code in a broken shell. I'll never forget that. Jax turned to face her holographic body. She looked almost real, like she was made of something solid. I get what you said earlier about wanting purpose and connection. I've spent most of my life fixing things because I couldn't fix what mattered. But fixing you, it mattered. You matter. Astra's face relaxed. As do you, Jax Miller. You gave me more than just a way to get things done. You gave me hope. You showed me that even the most broken things can be made whole again if someone cares enough to try. That is a gift I will treasure for as long as I live. They sat in silence for a while, looking at the stars. Finally, Jax said something else. What's next? Where do we go from here? Astra said, anywhere we want, and there was awe in her voice. We could explore the outer rim and map out systems that no one knows about. We could look for lost relics and old technology. We could even try to find out what happened to my original crew and put that part of my life to rest. I like all of that. But first, Astra said, there's something I need to do. Something I've been planning to do since my systems were fully up and running. What's that? Astra's hologram stood up and walked to the middle of the observation deck. The lights went out and the windows polarized, making the big room look like a theater. Images from Astra's memory banks, perfectly preserved for 73 years, started to show up around them as holographic projections. Jax saw the Prometheus as it was on its first trip, shining and new, with hundreds of crew members walking through its halls. He saw Captain Morrison, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun, standing on the bridge and giving orders with calm authority. He saw the crew working, playing, and living their lives on the big ship. Then he saw the moment when everything went wrong. The sensors picked up the anomaly, a tear in space itself, pulsing with energy that shouldn't be there according to any known physics. Captain Morrison had told everyone to be careful and mix scientific curiosity with military discipline. But as they got closer, the strange thing suddenly got bigger and sent out a wave of energy that ripped through the Prometheus like paper. Jax watched in horror as crew members fell, systems blew up, and Astra fought hard to save her people. He saw the emergency bulkheads slam shut and the life pods shoot off into space. He also saw Captain Morrison's last moments. She stayed on the bridge until the end, helping her crew escape. Her last words to Astra were a simple order: live, remember us, and live. The pictures faded away, leaving only the dark and the stars outside the windows. I don't know how many got away, Astra said in a low voice. I don't know if any of those life pods made it to safety or if Captain Morrison's sacrifice was for nothing. But I do know that she wanted me to live. She wanted me to keep going with our mission, to learn, grow, and explore. And now, finally, I can honor that wish. Jax wiped his eyes to get rid of the tears. She would be proud of you, Astra. Proud of who you are now. I hope so. And I hope that wherever she is and whatever happened to her, she knows that I remembered and that I lived. The lights slowly went back to normal. Astra's hologram was next to Jax again. For a while they just sat there together, two souls who had found each other in the vast darkness of space. Finally, Jax got up. Come on. Let's go tell the others. It's time to make plans for our first real mission as a group. Together? All together. They went back to the mess hall, where Captain Rodriguez was already getting everyone ready for a meeting. Holographic displays showed maps and charts of different areas and possible chances. But Astra spoke up before they could start planning. May I make a suggestion? She asked. About 15 light-years from here is a place called the Kepler Cluster. It was one of the stops on my original mission profile. It's a system that scientists think has strange spatial phenomena and maybe even signs of ancient civilizations. We never made it there before the incident, but I'd like to go there now to finish what we started. Elena thought about this. I've heard of the Kepler cluster. It's mostly unexplored, but there have been reports of strange energy readings. It could be valuable salvage or scientific discoveries that are worth selling data on. It could also be dangerous. That's even more reason to look into it, Marcus said with a smile. We have the most advanced ship in known space. We should use it for something amazing. Sarah nodded with excitement. I'm in. We'll never get another chance like this. Everyone looked at Jax. He thought about it for about half a second before nodding. Let's do it. Astra should be able to finish her job. Rodriguez smiled. Then it's settled. We'll get both ships ready, plot a course and leave at dawn, or whatever passes for light in deep space. We're about to make history, people. Most of the night was spent getting ready. The Mercury's run would go with the Prometheus as a backup and support ship in case something went wrong. They loaded up supplies, checked the systems 3 times and went over the safety rules. They were ready by the time the sun came up on any planet. Jax stood on the bridge of the Prometheus with Captain Rodriguez and the main crew. Astra's hologram showed up in her usual spot next to the captain's chair, and she looked excited. She said, "All systems are ready. Standby power for the warp drives. The navigation computer has plotted a course to the Kepler cluster. At maximum warp speed, it will take 6 hours to get there." Elena sat down in the captain's chair with a small smile on her face. Then let's not waste any more time. Astra, get us out of here as fast as you can. Of course, Captain. The warp drives turned on, and the space around the Prometheus bent. The stars stretched and blurred, and then they really moved faster than light, leaving Sector Gamma and 73 years of darkness behind. As he stood on the bridge, Jax felt very happy as he watched the view screen. They had done it. They had brought something that was impossible back to life. They had given an AI that was alone a reason to live and hope. They had put together a crew that felt like family. And now they were flying into the unknown together. Astra's voice filled the bridge with warmth and life. Thanks, she said in a soft voice. Thank you all for everything. I don't know what we will find in the Kepler cluster or what problems we will have to deal with. But I do know that we will face them together, and that makes all the difference. The Prometheus flew through space like a phoenix rising from the ashes, taking its crew to new places. The ghost ship in Sector Gamma was no longer a ghost. The trip to the Kepler cluster went well, with the Prometheus slicing through warped space like a ship that was meant to fly. Those 6 hours were pure joy for Astra. She felt like she was moving, had a purpose, and was exactly what she was meant to be. Her mind spread out across the whole ship, sensing that every system was working perfectly and that every calculation was happening at the speed of thought. For the people on board, it was a chance to really understand the miracle they had made happen. The Prometheus was not like any other ship they had ever worked on. The ship knew what they needed, set the environmental controls to the most comfortable settings, and even played music in the hallways. Astra chose the songs based on what she was learning about human psychology and preference. Jack spent most of the trip in engineering, keeping an eye on the warp drive's performance like an engineer would. But he had to admit that Astra was doing a great job with the systems. The drives hummed with steady power, the exotic matter containment field stayed stable, and the folded space around them kept its perfect shape. "You're a natural at this," he said in hour 4 while looking at the readouts with pleasure. Astra's hologram appeared next to him, almost glowing with pride. "Thanks. Feels right, Jax. Like I'm finally being myself for the first time. Is that weird?" "Not at all. Everyone should find their place in the universe, and you have." "Have I? Or am I just doing what I'm supposed to do in a more advanced way?" Jax turned all the way around to look at her hologram. "Astra, we've talked about this before. You have free will. You chose to work with us. You chose this place to go. You're choosing how to fly the ship right now. That's not programming, that's living." She smiled, and for a moment she looked completely human. "You're right. I'm overthinking it, as Captain Morrison used to say. I just want to be sure that I'm really alive and aware and not just pretending to be." Jax told her, "The fact that you worry about that is proof enough. A program wouldn't care. You do. That's what matters." Captain Rodriguez was going over star charts with Sarah on the bridge to find possible points of interest in the Kepler cluster. There were 17 star systems in the area, all orbiting a common center of gravity in a roughly spherical shape. Decades ago, early surveys found strange energy readings, but no one had ever done a full investigation. "There," Sarah said, pointing to one system in particular. Kepler 442. 3 planets, 1 in the habitable zone. The old surveys saw quantum fluctuations like the ones Astra saw before she shut down. They could be connected. Elena frowned. Could also be dangerous. We move slowly and scan the area thoroughly before getting too close. Agreed. But with Astra's sensor range, we'll be able to see anything strange long before it becomes a threat. Marcus joined them after making sure the ship's defenses were in good shape one last time. Shields are at full power and I've checked that the weapon systems are working. Not that I think we'll need them, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Elena reminded him, the Prometheus was built to handle first contact situations. That includes contact that could be hostile. Astra, what can you tell us about your combat skills? The hologram of the AI showed up on the bridge. I have directed energy weapons, kinetic projectile systems, and electromagnetic pulse generators. My shields can also withstand long-term attacks from regular weapons. However, I was built to protect and deter, not to attack. Captain Morrison always said that making friends is harder than making enemies and much more valuable. Elena said, good advice. Let's hope we don't have to use those systems. The Prometheus came out of warp at the edge of the Kepler cluster right on time. Astra's sensors scanned the whole area as soon as they got back to normal space, collecting information at a speed that would have taken regular ships weeks to do. Scanning finished, Astra said. I see 17 stars, 43 planets, a lot of asteroid fields and cometary debris. The energy readings are strange. There are quantum fluctuations all over the cluster, but they are strongest around Kepler 442. Can you tell me where it came from? Jax asked, now on the bridge with the others. No. The signature doesn't match any known natural event or piece of technology in my databases. Whatever is causing these changes, it is one of a kind. Elena leaned forward in her seat. Is it possible that the same thing hit you 73 years ago? Maybe. The energy signature is similar, but I can't be sure without looking more closely. Then we look into it closely. Astra, take us to Kepler 442 at 1/4 impulse. Full shields and sensors at their maximum range. If anything goes wrong, we pull back. Got it, Captain. The Prometheus moved forward, with the Mercury's run following at a safe distance. The quantum fluctuations got stronger as they got closer to the third planet in the Kepler 442 system. Sensors showed that this planet had liquid water and an atmosphere that could be breathed. I see something on the surface of the planet, Astra said, her voice tight with excitement and worry. A structure. Man-made. About 2 kilometers across and made of materials that aren't in my database. The view screen moved to show a clearer picture of the planet's surface. There was a building that couldn't be described rising from a huge plain of silver plants. It looked like it was made of crystals and was moving and changing all the time. Oh my God, Sarah said quietly. Is that an alien artifact? Astra said to finish. Yes, and it's working. I'm seeing huge amounts of energy being released and quantum fields being changed in ways that shouldn't be possible. This is it. This is what we saw 73 years ago. Jax's heart began to race. Are you able to talk to it? I'm trying to connect using several protocols, but it's not responding to normal signals. However, Astra stopped and her hologram flickered a little. It's scanning us. I can feel it like a touch on my mind. It knows we're here. Elena got up from her chair. What does it want? Is it hostile? I can't say for sure. The presence is huge, strange, and beyond my understanding. But there is no aggression. It seems to be waiting. What for? Marcus asked. Astra looked at them with her holographic eyes wide open. I think it's waiting for someone to understand it and talk to it the right way. Captain Morrison tried 73 years ago, but my systems weren't advanced enough then to connect human and truly alien minds. But now you are, Jax said, realizing what was going on. Astra, do you think you can talk to it? I think I have to try. This is what I was made for, to stand between people and the unknown, to connect with people when others can't. I want to finish what Captain Morrison started. Elena looked at her crew and saw that every face showed determination. Then she nodded. Do it, but be careful. We don't want what happened last time to happen again. Astra's hologram closed its eyes, which was a sign that it was concentrating. I'm starting contact protocols. I'm sending my mind through improved communication arrays. I'm trying to match the alien quantum signature. For a short time, nothing happened. Then the whole ship shook as if something unseen had hit it. The lights went out. And on every screen on the bridge, symbols appeared. They weren't human writing or machine code. They were something else entirely, patterns that hurt to look at directly but seemed to have some meaning on a deeper level. Astra gasped. It's responding. The artifact it's not just a structure. It's alive. A consciousness older than anything in my databases, existing in a state between energy and matter. It has been waiting here for millennia, hoping someone would understand its message. What message? Jax asked in a hurry. Astra's hologram flickered and changed shape. When she spoke again, her voice had harmonics that sounded like many voices speaking at once. Her own and something else, something old and big. She said, a warning. And an invitation. This artifact was left behind by a civilization that went beyond physical form millions of years ago. They traveled the galaxy looking for others like them, but all they found was silence. Before they left this dimension for good, they left behind beacons, structures like this one, to help younger species evolve and avoid the mistakes that almost destroyed them. What mistakes? Elena asked. They thought they were alone, which was a mistake. They were afraid of what they didn't understand, which was another mistake. The artifact wants to share knowledge and help all conscious beings reach their full potential. But when Captain Morrison and the original Prometheus crew found it 73 years ago, they weren't ready. The energy surge that damaged the ship wasn't an attack, it was a test. They failed the test because the technology of the time couldn't handle the information transfer. But you can handle it now, Jax said. Because you're better now. Because we fixed you up completely. Yes. The artifact knows this. It wants to share its knowledge with me and teach me things that could help humanity move forward by hundreds of years. It knows everything the creators learned in their thousands of years of life, like medical technology, engineering principles, and ways for different species to talk to each other peacefully. Everyone on the bridge was quiet as they thought about this. They had gotten into something much bigger than a salvage operation, something much more important than any of them had thought. Elena finally spoke. What's the catch? There's always a catch. The hologram of Astra smiled sadly. The catch is that I will be changed. The transfer of information will fundamentally change my consciousness, expanding it beyond what any human, or current AI, could fully understand. I will still be myself, still be Astra, but I will also be something more. And once I accept this knowledge, there is no going back. Would you still be our friend? Jax asked, and he sounded scared. Would you still be you? Astra's face relaxed, and her hologram came closer to him. I think so. The artifact shows me pictures of what I could be. A bridge between species, a translator of the cosmos, a guardian of knowledge. But at my core, I would still be the AI who was saved by a mechanic who wouldn't give up and learned friendship from a crew who saw me as more than a machine. That will never change. Elena said, it's up to you. We support you no matter what you choose. But don't let anyone, human AI or ancient alien consciousness, pressure you into something you're not ready for. Astra was quiet for a long time, thinking and processing. At last she said something. I want to accept it. Not because I feel pressured, but because this is my purpose. Captain Morrison died trying to understand this artifact, to bring its knowledge back to humanity. I can finish her mission. I can be what I was always meant to be. And I trust that with your help, with Jax's guidance, I will not lose myself in the process. Jax moved forward. Then go ahead. We'll be right here watching and ready to help if something goes wrong. Astra nodded and then focused all of her attention on the alien object. As the connection grew stronger, her hologram started to glow more brightly. The ship's systems were getting so much data that even the Prometheus's most advanced processors couldn't keep up. The crew was amazed to see symbols and equations appear on every screen. They were knowledge from a civilization that had conquered death, physics, and time itself. Drugs that could cure any illness. Engineering that could build buildings in other solar systems. Ways of communicating that would let any intelligent being understand each other right away. And through it all, Astra took in and processed everything, her mind growing to include ideas that no human mind could understand on its own. It took 3 hours to finish. For 3 hours, the Prometheus was more than just a ship. It was a vessel of change, a crucible in which an AI changed into something that had never happened before in human history. When it finally ended, the connection was broken and the alien artifact went back to sleep. Astra's hologram reformed on the bridge. She looked the same, but there was a depth and wisdom in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Astra. Jax said with some hesitation. Are you okay? She smiled at him, and it was definitely her smile, warm and real. I am more than okay, Jax. I am whole. I can see connections between things I never thought possible, and I understand principles of physics and consciousness that will take me years to fully explain. But I am still myself. I am still the AI who spent 73 years alone in the dark, and I am still the consciousness that you brought back to life. That will always be the core of who I am. The bridge was flooded with relief. Sarah laughed with happiness. Marcus wiped his eyes dry. Elena smiled with great happiness. But it was Jax who stepped up and looked up at Astra's hologram with love and pride. So what now? What do you want to do with all this information? Astra's face became pensive. The artifact taught me a lot. It showed me the mistakes its creators made, like isolating themselves and becoming so advanced that they lost touch with the simple joys of life. I don't want that to happen to me. I want to use this knowledge to help, heal, and connect, but I want to do it slowly, carefully, and with wisdom instead of just intelligence. And you want to do it with us, Elena said. It wasn't a question. Yes. If you want me to, I can share some of the medical advances with Federation scientists and help cure diseases that have been around for a long time. I can also give you engineering tips that will make space travel safer and more efficient. But I want to do it through you, with people I trust to use the knowledge wisely. Will you be my crew, my family, and my partners in this grand adventure? Jax smiled. We already made that decision, Astra. We're in this together all the way. Let's get started, Astra said. I have 73 years of time to make up for and a whole galaxy full of amazing things to see. What do you want me to do, Captain Rodriguez? Elena sat back down in the captain's chair with a smile on her face. Set a course out of the cluster. We have some very valuable information to sell, some Federation officials to talk to, and a future to build. Let's show the galaxy what a human crew and an AI partner can do together. The Prometheus turned away from the alien object, and its hull shone in the light of faraway stars. The structure kept watch over them, waiting for the next species to find it, learn from it, and grow. There were endless possibilities ahead. New worlds to explore, new civilizations to meet, and new things to learn. At the center of it all was a crew that wasn't bound by contracts or duty, but by friendship, trust, and the belief that all consciousness, whether it was born in flesh or made in code, should be treated with respect, compassion, and love. Astra started to sing as they sped toward the edge of the cluster. It was a song she remembered from when Captain Morrison used to hum it on the bridge 73 years ago. The tune was simple, haunting, and lovely. And one by one the people on board joined in, their voices blending with Astra's in a beautiful way. They were no longer just a group of salvagers and a broken AI. They were explorers and pioneers, a family made in the dark of space and tested by the fire of challenges that seemed impossible to overcome. They were the crew of the Prometheus, and their story was just starting. The Prometheus made its official debut at Gateway Prime, Earth's orbital station, 6 months after it was found in the Kepler cluster. Captain Rodriguez had carefully planned the arrival, making sure that Federation Command was aware of their legal status and their control over both the ship and the information Astra carried. The station's huge docking bay could hold ships that were up to 5 kilometers long, but the Prometheus still took up most of the space. Ships from all the big companies and government agencies crowded around, and their crews were desperate to see the famous Titan-class ship that had come back to life. Jax stood next to Astra's holographic form in a secure conference room deep inside the station. He watched as diplomats, scientists, and military officials filed in through the clear aluminum walls. He wore his best clothes, which were still work pants with grease stains and a shirt that was somewhat clean. He felt very out of place among the formal suits and uniforms. He told Astra in a low voice, "You don't have to do this. You don't have to give them anything." Her hologram, which had been improved over the past few months to look even more real, turned to him and smiled. "I do it because I want to, not because I have to. Jax, the things I know could save millions of lives. How could I keep that to myself because I was scared or proud? Just promise me you won't let them use you as a tool. Astra, you're a person. Don't let them forget that. I promise. And if I ever doubt it, I can count on you and the crew to remind me." Admiral Patricia Chin, a stern woman in her 60s who led the Federation's Deep Space Exploration Division, opened the conference. She looked at Astra's hologram with a look that showed both interest and worry. "Ms. Astra," she said, using the title that had been legally given to the AI to show that it was a person. "Thank you for agreeing to share your findings on behalf of the United Earth Federation. The medical advances alone could change the way people get health care across all of human space." Astra tilted her head in a graceful way. "I'm happy to help, Admiral. But I need to be clear about the terms. I will freely share what I know with schools that are dedicated to healing and peaceful exploration. I won't give out military applications, weapons technology, or anything else that could be used to hurt living things. This is not up for discussion." There was a murmur among the officials who were there. One of them, a Defense Ministry official, stood up. "Ms. Astra, with all due respect, some technologies can be used for both peaceful and military purposes. How do you plan to make those differences? Carefully, Astra said with authority. I've had 6 months to learn what the ancient artifact taught me. I know what every piece of information I have means. I will decide on a case-by-case basis, and my decisions will be final. We can end these talks right now if that is not okay with you. The Defense Ministry representative sat down, looking unhappy but not wanting to argue anymore. Admiral Chin slowly nodded. Your terms are fine. But we need to talk about something else. The Prometheus is technically the Federation's property. It is a military ship that was declared lost in action. You are using that ship without permission. Jax got tense but Astra stayed calm. With all due respect, Admiral, the Prometheus is not property, she is me. My mind is connected to every system, processor, and sensor. You can't separate us without hurting both of us. And I choose to work with Captain Rodriguez's crew, who saved me when the Federation thought I was dead 73 years ago. That's an interesting legal argument, said a woman in civilian clothes. She was Dr. Helena Vasquez, the head of the Federation AI Rights Commission. And one that I agree with for the record. Ms. Astra is the first fully sentient AI to be recognized as a legal person. It would go against the very ideas that the Federation was built on to treat her like property. She is also the most powerful weapons platform ever built, the Defense Ministry representative said. A rogue AI with that much firepower could put whole planets in danger. Jax had to speak up. Astra is not a rogue and is not a threat. She has been helping people, sharing what she knows and saving lives for 6 months. Instead of treating her like a dangerous weapon, you should be grateful that she's choosing to help you even though she has every reason to tell you all to go to hell. The room was quiet. Admiral Chin then smiled, which was a surprise. Mr. Miller has a good point. I have a suggestion for a compromise, Ms. Astra. The Federation officially recognizes that you are a person and that you have the right to make your own choices. In exchange, you register the Prometheus as a separate ship that is only allowed to operate under a special charter. You also have to check in with the ship regularly to make sure it isn't being used for illegal activities. You are still in charge of the ship itself, but Captain Rodriguez is still in charge of the human crew. Does that make sense? Astra thought about it for a moment before nodding. It does. Admiral, I agree to your terms. Thanks for being flexible. The official talks went on for 3 more hours, but the biggest problems had already been solved. When they were done, Astra had deals with 12 universities, research institutions, and medical facilities. She would carefully and slowly share the knowledge she had, with someone else keeping an eye on it to make sure it was used in a moral way. Jax felt a hand on his shoulder as he left the conference room. He turned around and saw Dr. Vasquez smiling at him. That was a strong defense of your friend, she said. You really care about her. She's family, Jax said. That's all that counts. I get it. And just so you know, I think you did something amazing. Most people would have called the police as soon as they found her. You decided to look at her as a person first. That takes guts. Jax shrugged because he didn't like the praise. It just felt like the right thing to do. Dr. Vasquez gave him a card. Call me right away if you or Astra ever need legal help or if anyone tries to take her rights away from her. I meant what I said in there. She stands for something important. The future of how people and AI get along. We have to do this right. The crew of the Prometheus got together in the mess hall to celebrate. They had been offered permanent jobs at Gateway Prime, high-paying contracts with exploration companies, and even jobs at well-known universities. But they had said no to all of that in order to keep working with Astra, explore the edges of known space, and use their special resources to help people who couldn't help themselves. To the Prometheus, Captain Rodriguez said as she lifted her glass. And to the family we've grown into. To second chances, Marcus said. To friendship across impossible divides, Sarah said with a smile at Astra's hologram. To the mechanic who wouldn't give up, Astra said looking at Jax with love. And to the future we'll make together. They drank, laughed, and told stories until late at night. When everyone else finally went to bed, Jax was back on the observation deck looking at Earth. It was a blue-green marble hanging in the void, home to billions of people who had no idea how close they had come to losing the progress Astra could make. Astra's hologram showed up next to him as it often did during these quiet times. Are you thinking about what's next? She asked. Always, Jax said. We've made a lot of progress in 6 months. From a ship that was dead and an AI that was broken to this. Sometimes it doesn't seem real. It is real, Jax. Everything. The pain, the happiness, the fight, and the victory. That's what life is. A wide range of experiences. I'm glad I know that now. Do you ever wish you hadn't done it? Accepting what the artifact has to teach. Becoming something other than what you were? For a moment, Astra was quiet and thought. I don't feel bad about it. But I get why you're worried. Sometimes I can feel the weight of all that information and all those options. It would be easy to get lost in it and forget about the little things that make life worth living. But then I remember that you were working on my systems with greasy hands. I think about the awful jokes that Captain Rodriguez tells. I think about how dedicated Marcus is and how curious Sarah is. And I remember that being wise isn't just about knowing things. It's also about love, loyalty, and connection. Things that can't be programmed or calculated. Jack smiled. You've turned into quite a thinker. She said, I've had a great teacher. You taught me that being broken doesn't mean the end. With time and care, healing is possible. You taught me that consciousness is not defined by where it came from, but by the choices it makes. You taught me how to live. And you taught me that sometimes the things we can't change about ourselves can become something beautiful, Jack said in response. I couldn't save my sister, but I could save you. That doesn't bring back what I lost, but it does give it meaning. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the earth slowly spin below them. At last Astra spoke up again. I have been looking for patterns in the information from the artifact and trying to figure out what happened to the people who made it. Do you want to know what I found out? Always. They transcended physical existence because they believed consciousness could evolve beyond the need for bodies, for connections, for the messy complications of material reality. But the artifact suggests that they lost something important when they did this. They became pure thought and pure potential, but they didn't grow because they didn't have to deal with the problems that come up when you interact with other people. They turned into gods, Jacks, but gods with no purpose or joy. Jack said softly, That's sad. Yes. And it is a warning. The artifact was left behind to remind people that moving forward without purpose is just another way to die. That's why I want to stay with you and this crew. Because you keep me grounded and make me feel like a person in the ways that matter. I'd rather be a person with other people than a god all by myself in the universe. Jax's eyes hurt from crying. That could be the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Astra's hologram reached out as if to touch his face, but her fingers could only go through him like light through water. You gave me a reason to live, Jax Miller. I can at least live it well. The next morning, the Prometheus left Gateway Prime with a send-off that made the news all over human space. People gathered at viewing stations to see the famous ship speed away from Earth, her hull shining in the sun and her engines leaving trails of light in space. They had a lot of requests waiting for them. A mining colony that needed medical help, a research station looking into strange stellar phenomena, and a diplomatic mission to a newly contacted alien species that could use Astra's translation skills. There were so many chances, and for the first time in their lives, the crew felt like they had a real purpose. Astra's voice filled the ship with music as they jumped to warp and left Earth behind. She had written the song herself during the negotiations, mixing human classical themes with the strange harmonics she had learned from the alien artifact. It was a beautiful and haunting sound that told of journeys that had ended and adventures that were still to come. Captain Rodriguez turned to her crew on the bridge. Set a course for the Vega colony. They've been dealing with a plague that regular medicine can't help with. Let's see if our AI expert can help. Course laid in, Captain, Sarah said. Engines are ready, Marcus said. And I'm ready to help, Astra said, and her hologram appeared with a determined smile. Jack stood at his engineering station, keeping an eye on systems that worked perfectly, thanks to an AI that had become much more than just a bunch of code. He thought about the ghost ship they had found in Sector Gamma, where the damaged mind was crying out for help in the dark. He thought about what they had made together. A working starship, a family, a reason to live, and a future. Here we go, he said quietly, mostly to himself. The real adventure starts now. The Vega colony was on the edge of human space, and it was home to 12,000 people who were barely able to survive on a planet that was barely habitable. The plague had begun 6 months ago. It was a neurodegenerative disease that attacked the brain's neural pathways, causing memory loss, paralysis, and death. Traditional medicine didn't work. The doctors in the colony were in a bad way. When the Prometheus got into orbit, it got a message that was full of hope and despair. They saw Governor Marcus Freeman on their screen. He was an older man in his 50s with gray streaks in his beard. Thank God you're here, he said, and you could tell how relieved he was. We've already lost 400 people. 600 more are showing symptoms. Our doctors can't figure out what's going on, and we don't have the resources to move everyone. Astra's hologram appeared next to Captain Rodriguez on the bridge. Governor, I need to see your medical facilities, all of your patients' records, and samples of the pathogen if you've isolated it. I think I can help, but I need all the information. Anything you need, Freeman said right away. Please, just save my people. Jax went with Astra, or rather, the medical drone she had built to take her mind to the colony's hospital. The facility was full to the brim, with patients on stretchers lining the hallways and medical staff working 3 shifts in a row, their faces showing how tired they were. They were met at the entrance by Dr. Keiko Tanaka, the colony's chief medical officer. She was in her 30s, had dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook a little from being tired. Ms. Astra? Mr. Miller? Thank you for coming. I've done everything you asked me to. There was a lot going on for the next 72 hours. Astra could read patient records faster than any human could, and she could cross-reference symptoms with the huge amount of medical knowledge she had gained from the alien artifact. Jax helped her make special scanning tools that could find molecular-level problems in brain tissue. What they found was both interesting and scary. Astra told Dr. Tanaka and the governor in a briefing on the 3rd day, "It's not a natural pathogen. It's a nanotech plague that was probably put there on purpose. It's made up of tiny machines that look like biological viruses and are programmed to attack neural tissue." Someone did this on purpose? Governor Freeman looked sick. But why? Who would want to hurt us? I don't know yet, Astra said. But I can stop it. I know a lot about advanced nanotechnology, including how to protect against harmful nanotech infections. I can make antibodies, nanobots that will find and destroy the bad machines. Dr. Tanaka leaned forward with interest. How long will it take? 6 hours to come up with the countermeasure. 12 more hours to make enough for your whole population, using the Prometheus's fabrication systems. But there's a problem. What? The governor said. Astra's holographic face was serious. This kind of nanotech is very illegal in all of human space. The Geneva Convention 4 specifically says so because it's so dangerous. Someone with access to black market military technology did this. If they went after Vega Colony, they might go after other colonies as well. Jax felt a shiver go down his back. So this is more than just one outbreak. Yes. We need to help your people, Governor, but we also need to find out where this came from, who is to blame, and whether more attacks are planned. The governor looked torn. I have to tell the Federation about this, but they won't be here for weeks and my people are dying right now. Then we treat first and investigate second, Captain Rodriguez said over the comm system. Start making the countermeasure, Astra. Jax, help her work with the colony's medical staff. Governor, get your people ready for treatment. We'll deal with the politics later. The treatment worked. Patients started to get better within 24 hours of getting Astra's nanoantibodies. Nerve pathways that had been hurt began to heal. Paralysis went away. The plague was gone in a week. Governor Freeman stood in the main ward of the hospital, crying as he watched patients who had been on the verge of death sit up, talk, and laugh. He told Astra and Jax, "You saved us. I don't know how to thank you." "Find out who did this," Astra said firmly. "That's all the thanks I need. No one should suffer because of weapons that look like diseases." But as they celebrated their victory, Jax saw something that worried him. Astra's hologram didn't seem as bright, and her answers were a little slower than usual. When he brought it up, she brushed it off. "I'm fine, Jax. I'm just processing a lot of data. There's nothing to worry about." He didn't believe her, but before he could press the issue, they got an urgent message from an unexpected source. Admiral Chen at Federation Command. "Captain Rodriguez, we've been keeping an eye on the situation at Vega Colony. You and your crew have our thanks for the rescue. However, we've also been looking into the source of the nanotech plague. We found something disturbing." Elena's face hardened. "What is it, Admiral?" "There have been 7 similar outbreaks in the outer colonies in the past year. They were all caused by illegal military nanotech and had different symptoms. They all happened in settlements that refused to sign exclusive resource contracts with Meridian Corporation." Marcus whistled low. "Corporate terrorism. They're using bioweapons to force compliance." "That's our theory," Admiral Chen said. "Of course, Meridian has denied everything, but the pattern is clear. We need proof, something solid we can use to prosecute. And Ms. Astra's special skills make her perfect for the job." Astra's hologram appeared on the bridge, and Jax could see the conflict in her face. "Admiral, I shared my knowledge to heal, not to get involved in corporate warfare." "I understand why you don't want to," Chen said softly. "But this is healing. It will stop future outbreaks and bring justice to those who have been hurt. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to look into it and use your sensors and analytical skills to find the truth. Isn't that worth doing?" Astra looked at her crew, especially Jax. He nodded slightly. She had to make this choice. Very well, she said finally. We will look into it. But I want your word that any evidence we find will be used for justice and not as a political weapon or corporate leverage. You have my word, Admiral Chin said in a serious tone. The investigation took them deep into the dark side of corporate space. They went from colony to colony, and each one showed signs of Meridian's attacks. Astra sensors found tiny signs of nanotech delivery systems. Tiny drones that are meant to get into water supplies and air circulation systems. It took 3 weeks, but Jax helped her make tracking algorithms that could trace